Thank you for staying with us and welcome. Now we're about to hit the road. Oh, haven't we hit the road already? We now want to start running. Let's run.
Yeah, it's time for us to start running now.
Let's run.
Good.
So,
So we're running with the state of the nation. In the course of the week, a number of things happened that have drawn all kinds of comments from all kinds of quarters. The area of security, especially. And the judiciary also came into focus in the course of the week. And should I say happily, we have two lawyers with us this morning. So that particular matter we're going to look at, and we're going to get their opinions on that particular issue of the Imo State judgment. But first, let me introduce our guest, Mr. Athawari. He's a legal practitioner. Good morning.
Good morning. Thank you.
Thank you for joining us. And our old friend here, Mr. Oscar Owundiwe.
Thank you.
Should I also add the cynic? Good morning.
On national television.
That's
I'm not going to reply.
right of reply.
Denied.
You see?
Today I am the
You see?
judge.
The court.
Yes, so let me begin with the issue of security. The issue of security has been a big issue for a number of years. We've been talking about it. And 2 weeks ago or so, 6 states in the southwest region got together and formed this thing, which received, I think, in equal proportion, knocks and kudos, the Amotekun. But then the federal government came out in the course of this week and kind of, just poured cold water on everybody by declaring it illegal. So, Mr. Athawari, Amotekun, the intention was to support the police and help in making the environment in that zone more secure.
Yes.
But the federal government says, sorry guys, no can do.
Yes. So my view.
Your view about that?
Well, strictly speaking, without emotion, and looking at the state of the law, security is exclusive, right? I think it's item 63, which says police and other security agencies. So the FG's position, not its declaration of illegality, because that's a different thing, but we have to concede constitutionally it's a federal obligation, okay? Amotekun, the question is it a creation of law before you declare it illegal? Because normally you would say that a law has been breached or the law set up is inconsistent with the Constitution. That's not at play here. So I think that perhaps both sides can rethink or rejig the process so that you avoid some of the pitfalls. For instance, I mean, as any constitutional expert will know, any regional, anything that goes outside of a state and becomes regional or interstate is generally a federal matter, becomes something you call common services. So perhaps there's a challenge in the purported regionality of it. Perhaps if each state created an entity and then they coordinated. I mean, Lagos already has the safety corps, for instance, by law, and nobody has challenged that.
okay, just hold your thoughts a bit. Let's go on a short break. We'll be back in a moment. Please stay with us. Thank you for staying with us and welcome back. Mr. Owundiwe, that question that Alewa asked, let's hear from your side. What do you think about the emergence of Amotekun and the reaction of the federal government?
Well, luckily I just saw that snippet now, and it makes me laugh. I'm a bit confused. Confused in the sense that people are talking about the security of their place. We all know that the federal government cannot do it alone. How many people do we have in the police? Can we break it down? They said about 400,000. Now let's begin to break it down. How many big men have two policemen taking care of them? How many oil companies have how many policemen taking care of them? How many state houses? 36 state houses with a minimum of about 20 policemen milling around. By the time you divide all of that, then those who stay back at home, how many people do you have to fight crime? How much do
maybe
you pay them?
200,000?
Not up to. And even if you have 200,000 for how many million people?
200 million?
This is a problem. Now, so if a state decides or if people decide, you know what, the Western state, let me say Western Nigeria, they like to do things together. And they say, look, the same thing has been happening. 2004, we have the vigilante group in Anambra State. They're still functioning till today. They have not disturbed anybody. They cooperate with the police. They work with the police. If they get anybody arrested, they don't go. They don't have their own prison. They take it to the police, and they make the prosecutions there. It's the same thing that is about to happen here. Why this fear? First of all, before Malami said anything, some guy got up and said he's from Arewa Youth. He's the head of Arewa Youth, and he made a statement that they will not accept it. After that, another person from Arewa Consultative said something, and then suddenly Malami gave an opinion. It is illegal. What's going on? What's the fear for? Really, what's the fear? We want security. Can you provide it? The answer is no. What was happening in Benue? We all know what's happened. We know what is happening in southern Kaduna. We know what is happening in Taraba. And some people say, look, before it comes to us, let's do something about it. And then suddenly it is illegal. And you cannot provide that security. And do not forget, the primary job of the federal government is what? Protection of life.
Is it just the federal
and
government?
property.
Because I was going to bring
Government level?
Government.
Well, let me say
Government.
government.
That general phase cannot be, in my view, used to construct security structures outside of the general. But we concede that because of certain decisions within the police and other agencies, we concede that there aren't sufficient men to go around. Even this morning as we came here, while some policemen were working, searching
traffic?
people, doing police work, others in their camouflage uniform with horse whips were escorting private individuals about their business.
Otherwise known as big men in
Big
Nigeria.
men, VIP protection, and so on. So my view is that if the government wants to take the self-righteous, as the federal government wants to say, you can't do this, then they must, by their own policy, reverse some of this depletion so that police can. So because Amotekun, as much as I have issues, purely my lawyer's mind with some of the structural and legal, the reality is that it is a child of circumstance. It's reacting to a need. It's reacting to a feeling that the region has been abandoned in terms of, or that certain people are beyond the reach of the law. These are the perceptions. So the governors, as you know, in Nigeria, fund most security, even taking away the vigilante thing. I ran a trust fund for 8 years, where 80% of police support came from Lagos State and donors. So there is a failure there that Amotekun, and governors are under pressure to do something so that their people who elected them feel that they are a primary concern of the governor. So there are many missing parts and parts that need to fit, and some policy realignment by the federal government.
Okay.
If it wants what you call monopoly of law enforcement, then it must apply the kind of resources that would,
So
cure the anxiety.
in other words, what you're saying is we shouldn't take that, again, back to that portion of the Constitution, the primary responsibility of government is the security of lives and property.
Yes.
We shouldn't take it literally.
No, it's not. You can't confer law enforcement and security powers in a detailed constitution by those kind of broad prescripts.
Okay.
Otherwise, you will have no limit to what people can do.
Okay, so let's break it down a little bit, because in writing that I put down the powers of government
Yes.
generally, then
Yes.
at the local government,
Yes.
at the state,
Yes.
and at the federal.
Yes.
What room does the law of the land give to this levels of government
Yeah.
to protect lives and
No,
protect,
look. In theory, and has been the situation from independence, right? Law enforcement security is considered a common service. Do you understand? That the same standards will apply all across the land, and because of issues of command and control and accountability, you'll have an identifiable structure. So in Nigeria, the exclusive list has continued that tradition and said that police and other security agencies, that's what the item says, is exclusively that of the National Assembly. There is a small kind of nominal recognition of the governor's power in the provision regarding the police, where it says that the governor may, if circumstances demand, order the CP to take certain actions. But that even that order is subject to review by a minister. So constitutionally, it's been and you know it's from the military culture, command and control.
Yeah.
If you look at the Constitution and the Police Act vests operational control of the police in the president, right? The Constitution establishes a police council, which is made up of the governors, but explicitly states that operational matters shall not be within the preserve of the council. So you can see that all efforts are made to centralize the command. The military too is under the president. The intelligence services is under the president, and yet people say governors are chief security officers. You can't be a chief security officer if you don't have command and control. Apart from the fact, I'm sorry, let me end. Apart from the fact that that office is not referred to in any constitution or any statute book. So you see, there's that vagueness that needs to be clarified.
All this centralization,
Yes.
Oscar, is it not part of our
Yes.
problem?
It is part of our problem, and it is part of what some people in government would rather die than let it go.
And let go.
They would rather die than let it go. And it will continue to pull Nigeria down. It will continue to pull Nigeria down. Name any country with that type of population that will not have state police. Name them. And they tell you, oh, that the governors will use it for elections, that they will abuse it. Is the federal government not abusing it? So it's unfortunate. It's just we politicize everything.
How do you politicize everything?
Fear. We politicize our fear.
Break it down a little bit. Break it down a little bit. Further.
Now, somebody sits in Abuja, and once he used the word command and control. So you want to command and control everything that is happening, including in my village, that you don't even know. So this is where it starts from. And then when you do things like that, you have the police, you control it. If you remember, during Shagari's time, there was a major problem in the old Anambra state then. And that was between Jim Wobodo and Ekweme. You know, because Ekweme wanted certain things done, and Jim Wobodo says it's not going to happen because they were from two different political parties. And then the police came in. Of course, the police would take instructions from Abuja, meaning whatever you have to do, nobody's going to listen to you.
Bishop,
Exactly, if you remember. And so this is the way we've been. This thing has been a problem, and it will remain a problem until the day we find wisdom.
Until the day we restructure.
Until the day
You know, that language they don't like.
No, or maybe until the day you have presidents, right, that don't have the DNA of centralism, such as the current,
that is
the military. You know, if we can get a new set of people that are not embedded in this culture of
That are focused on progress.
and want progress.
Let's look at that thing about new crop of people.
Yes.
Where are they going to come from?
Are
they not?
No, every country.
There are lots of Nigerians who are
listen,
good.
That's cynical.
I'm not saying,
I think
I'm not saying that.
He's the cynic.
No.
Now.
Okay,
I'm saying-
why I asked the question?
Okay.
See, they say there's a culture
Yes.
or there's a system,
Yes.
and everyone comes out of that system
Yes.
or that culture.
Yes.
So they are they are seeing the examples.
Yes.
If someone is seeing an example consistently
Yes.
before him,
Yes.
over time,
Yes.
it's expected that that person would align.
Yeah,
now,
but-
I'm not saying there are exceptions
Yeah.
to the rule.
No, not even
so
exception.
how do we get to that point?
because he'll be more amenable, right, to a broader review of things. Do you understand? When you let's talk about two presidents. Let's talk about Obasanjo. You know, involved in the events of '66, involved in the war, used to command. So he used to say, when he meets with the governors, he used to say, Governor Anambra, Governor Lagos. You know, it's that, and many times he would say, summon the governors to Abuja. You don't have that power. You know, but that's the culture.
Yeah.
The same, you heard the current president regretting the fact that he didn't have some of his immediate effect powers that he had from. So these people, by their culture, their training, they are used to this centralized command and control. A person, when I say a new person that has not been that, can easily be turned away from the example because his mind is broader.
Yeah.
He has and he's as my
Yar'Adua
brother has
was
said,
different.
He probably has a different
Yeah.
sense of what Nigeria could be.
Orientation.
So I think that is important. That perhaps, you know, although I don't believe this Rome was built in a day, therefore time is always going to solve a problem. But I do believe that we need to move out of the shadow of certain national figures. So
Yeah.
that we can leave their baggage behind and begin to. State police should not scare anybody with a managerial bent. It's purely a logistical and structural
That's
thing
right.
that will deliver.
That's
Okay,
right.
let's leave security for a moment. Let's go to banking. In other words, the economy. I couldn't help but notice, well, not notice, it happened to me. I wanted to buy fuel, and I was asked whether I was going to use a card or cash. And I said, card. And I was told, sorry, madam, you cannot buy petrol here because we're not using POS machines anymore. Full stop. So I had to take my custom somewhere else. And what has happened is that because of this 50 naira surcharge, a lot of merchants have stopped using those machines
Yes.
in an economy where the central bank is preaching cashless, cashless, cashless. So it's like you're mouthing it,
Yes.
but your actions are
Yes.
contrary to
Yes.
what is expected
Yes.
of a cashless economy. Please, what are your comments about this 50 naira that you have to pay when a merchant uses a POS to serve you?
I heard not too long ago that the central bank has decided to bring it down to 26 naira instead of 50 naira.
No, I think
I heard so.
I thought they cancelled
I
it
thought that was
altogether.
for
And
transfers.
I also, transfers. Okay, I also heard that they cancelled it.
Cancelled, that's what
that
I
they
heard.
cancelled it, but well, somehow you give an instruction
Yes.
and people downstairs don't get
Don't
to know.
carry that.
What
And it
we
will
heard
continue.
Yes.
was that it was the merchants supposed to pay the
Supposed to
50
pay the
naira,
50 naira.
not the customer.
Okay.
But of course, I mean,
Of course, they transfer.
of
don't-
the transfer,
they
they
don't
the
pass it on.
transfer,
The
is,
absence
you know,
of clarity.
yeah.
Look, let's be honest. Nigeria suffers a crisis of compliance across the chain. The discipline of compliance means that, first of all, institutions must communicate with more clarity, right? Often, a lot of people will say, oh, it's just 50 naira, let me pay it. That's on the individual.
Yeah.
But we're talking about billions of naira at the
Oh,
end
yeah.
of the day. Where is that money gone? What's the purpose? What benefit do I get? If I'm going to pay something, I should get a
Some benefit.
And like you rightly said, who is really to pay it? Is it the merchant for the service of that POS, or me, who wants to buy 1,000 naira fuel, but I'm paying 50 and I'm not told what's the benefit to me? So normally charges, fees, and so rates are for a benefit. So I think there's a problem perhaps of communication. There's a problem of policy articulation. There's no clarity. I cannot argue with the petrol attendant because I have no reference to say it's not mine, it's yours. Sort of
That's
thing.
why I drove off.
And if money has been wrongly paid, right? If
Who returns it?
if the policy has been misconstrued,
And
who returns it? Why is there no accountability? People must account. So I can go and say, well, I bought 6 times. I want the money. It's not the amount, it's the principle.
Yeah.
So again, this institutional role and the regulators and so on, I think they need to be a bit more clear in their and there should be accountability.
Mr. Holdaway, the question of accountability in government and the economy, for instance. So we heard that the new finance bill gives room for the upward review of VAT from 5% to 7.5.
Yeah.
Then the Auditor General says it's starting immediately. The minister comes up to say it's
no.
starting on
February
the 1st of February.
Mm-hmm.
The question of accountability and clarity in communication appears to be a problem in government in Nigeria.
Generally.
Are you talking about accountability or communication? The problem is communication. Or
Both, yes.
Well, they're not communicating.
One compounds
What
the
can
other.
anybody say? They're not communicating.
Yes.
This is not the first time people have noticed that government institutions are not communicating and not cooperating.
coordinating.
That has been a tradition.
Competition.
People do. I don't know whether if they are
It's
competing
empire.
or they just do what they feel like. The minister, I saw the minister saying that, it will start in February, but the accountant general says a totally different thing. Who does the accountant general report
Or
to?
two.
Nobody's asking that question. And then the minister, of course, reports to the president. So we take what the minister says. But
Yeah.
trust me, some other people will start
but
immediately.
That is you. But I'm sure some merchants are already charging 7.5.
Oh, yeah.
So what happens when, you being the lawyer here, what happens to a situation where a law is signed? I mean, a document is signed into law.
Yes.
What does it take for it to come into implementation? Does it happen immediately? Or does it have to be gazetted?
We'll go and ask the minister.
No, but the Gazette is an administrative process.
yes.
Constitution does
Of
not
course.
refer to
You ask the
anything.
minister.
What you need is your implementation structure,
That's
not
all.
Gazette. I can Gazette something and for 2 years nothing happens. The question is, are the agencies that are to implement ready? For instance, certain laws require a larger budgetary allocation to a certain agency for their implementation, but we don't do that. We don't do that fit. It's just, and I, I'm a federalist. VAT is not the federal government's business. We're not England, which is
It shouldn't be.
unitary. It's a consumption tax. Lagos, that has the highest consumption rate, should be the primary beneficiary of such a tax.
Yes.
So there are all kinds of, issues.
Sounds a bid to raise revenue for the government.
No, I
Which
don't. It's
government?
not to my benefit. Most
Which
federal
government?
revenue, I don't know. I'm like, nobody accounts.
I live in
to
Lagos.
Me. I live in Lagos.
I spend my money in
Where?
Lagos.
Tell me, what's
So why
going
should
on?
it go to Abuja?
Or the percentage? Because when they first passed the VAT, the percentage to states was higher. Then they saw that Lagos was the primary beneficiary, and they flipped it. I mean, these are some of the things that.
But if the bulk of the money is coming from Lagos,
that's
it follows.
Yeah, but rationality is not necessarily the policy driver in many decisions. Let's be honest.
Okay, we'll take a moment and we'll be back to continue the conversation. Do stay with us. Thank you for staying with us. We're still looking at the state of the nation. I have this tweet here from, no name, says retweet NG. Says, okay, our ethnic diversity is the root of all our problems as a nation. Don't be deceived into saying it's our strength. Is it our ethnic diversity that is the problem with communication, with clarity, or
Accountability.
Or accountability?
Discipline.
I think that's a cop-out, right? Ethnic diversity. We are diverse in terms of communication. Perhaps one reason for our sometimes inarticulateness in policy is that the input is so diverse, more than the ethnicity. You've got experts, Nigerian experts from everywhere. Nigeria is a country of experts, and then they are coming back from studies in Russia and Ukraine and the USA and Canada and India and Malaysia and all of that. And each of those places teach, in a different way. right? And then they come back and with different solutions. And then they come back and sit around that committee and try to, make a camel, but they end up making a horse or vice versa. And it's very difficult to... England's civil service is essentially the creation of their public school system. So they tend to, think... This is just my view. I don't think ethnicity can be broken down. You can bleed somebody. An Igbo man who grows up in Lagos, for instance, in Surulere, which is cosmopolitan. After a while, in my view, he's not thinking ethnically. Because what you're saying is not just that you are ethnically different, but that you are thinking ethnically, which means that the other man also thinking ethnically can't think together. I don't think that's the problem. I think we make too much of that to excuse some of our excesses. Or our
I
abuse.
think the proper
But
thing
I
we
don't
should
have a
said,
perfect answer.
It's not the ethnic thing, it's ethnic insecurity.
Okay.
Where a lot of us feel insecure. And that's the reason we think turn by turn is a way
It's
out.
a way out.
When you're sitting on that place, okay, then my whole tribe
Village is
has been
covered.
taken care of. Then when you go out of there, another person
Yeah.
sits in my tribe. It's insecurity. That's the problem. It's the insecurity, not the fact that we're diverse. I mean, the same person saying this will go abroad, go to America, they're Italian, American, Spanish, all sorts of people, and he feels good and even feels proud to be an American, when he gets his green card. So, but now you're in Nigeria and you say the problem is it's insecurity.
So how do we get out of this insecurity?
Oh, that's simple. The day he
Restructure.
said it, he said, the day we have a president, a head of state that has a team of people who say, you know what, we want to take Nigeria to a better level. Number one is, there was something I was telling him when we were waiting. Since 1914, when Nigeria became amalgamated, every 2 years, the colonial masters and officials, they write reports to the Home Office. You know what it's about? Analysis of every tribe, the tendencies of this tribe, their strengths and their
Culture,
weaknesses.
yeah.
So they are studying you. Name that person who has been president of Nigeria who could say he has a group of people studying the others to see how we can, where we meet
The
and where
meeting
we
points
don't
and
meet.
where we...
Diverge.
Nobody. Remember, I said it here, the most important, it was a very wise decision by Ibrahim Babangida. The most important thing he created was that National Orientation Agency. Is it working? No. Answer, no. So that is the way out. The day that president comes in and says, I now want this place to work, you'll be surprised. Nigerians don't have problems with each other. If I travel from here to Kafanchan and my car breaks down, I need water, somebody there will give me water. He won't ask me, where are you from?
Exactly.
If I fall down, somebody will help me. They won't ask me where I come from. But once it's politics,
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the problem.
where are you from?
Yeah.
Where did you not come from? That's the
The
problem.
20 years
You
of
mentioned
democracy.
the National
Insecurity.
Orientation Agency.
That's right.
And I also want to point out the National Youth Service Corps,
They killed it.
which people thought would actually help in this.
mismanage our
We mismanage
institutions.
everything.
We corrupt them. We use them as vehicles for, that's the problem. That's why other countries, America doesn't have an orientation agency, but it has rituals.
Yes.
That, the flag is so important in every school. You read the Gettysburg Address, So, but we like formal things, which after a while we forget. And then they just become irrelevant. And yet money will still be voted every year, but national orientation will not, because we just won't run them properly.
Mr. Thor,
Yes.
let me ask you a question about
Yes.
the rituals. So you talked about the
Yes.
rituals. Nigeria has a
Not
flag.
not the good Nollywood type of ritual.
no.
When you say ritual to a Nigeria, we're
cringe.
just it's strange. It's a strange,
Okay.
Yes.
Let's look at the rituals.
Yes.
Things that we have.
Yes.
Identity.
The
marks.
anthem,
We
the
have our flag.
Yes.
We have the coat of arms.
Coat of arms. We have the
anthem.
pledge.
We have the pledge.
Yes.
Is it possible
Yes.
to orientate Nigerians
Yes.
going by these rituals
Yes.
again? Because I do know there was a time when we're told when the flag,
Yeah.
when the anthems happen,
Yes.
wherever wherever you are,
Yes.
you stop.
Stand
Yes.
up.
Yes.
You stand
Yes.
still until
Yes.
that anthem ends.
Yes.
But that doesn't apply
And you
anymore.
see, that's the thing about us. You see, nation building is not by wishful thinking. It's by a combination of factors. And that's why serious countries don't forget these rituals. Remind people. And again, a country that stops teaching history as a deliberate is just
Policy.
finished.
Yeah.
It's hollowed out.
That's right.
You have to know where you're coming from, the circumstances. It is extraordinary that a space bought for 825,000, and thank God for Burna Boy, the musician, for using his medium to teach, right? Has become a nation. With all its flaws, it's still a nation. With a place in the United Nations, with status, a nation who, when it closes its borders, the rest of the region sneezes. So if you have to understand how that process occurred.
About.
It's a teachable moment. And then you can now begin to think through the possibilities of the future. So it's all, that's why countries don't play with history. You can't be an Englishman and not know about King Arthur, King George, and all of that, and how England came to be, how they fought the Scots for how many years, and so on and so forth. So for me, you can't have orientation in sort of a floating space. It's
Yeah.
got to be grounded in
That's right.
something.
Yeah.
So,
But I thought those items we talked about could be like the foundation. Of
no,
which
you have to come from
you start
somewhere.
from.
What's the flag about? If I just wave the flag green, white, green without teaching you the history, why is it green, white, green?
Yeah. Why
So
is
you
not blue?
can't just wave it. It has to agriculture,
understand.
peace, Then a child can ask. but
It has
Our
meaning.
flag is peace, but how come there's so much? People
Rancor.
just begin to. Then the adult is like, I think we need to do a bit more to validate this symbol. But we're just sort of, it's only
Okay.
Independence Day, and but this is a daily ritual in American schools, right down to the county. And then everybody knows Abraham Lincoln. Everybody
yeah.
knows about slavery. Why doesn't America stop talking about slavery as if it never happened when it defines the journey?
Exactly.
So these are the things that, for me, you can't run away from. But we are running away. And if you run away from your history, you allow miscreants to create a different narrative that's constantly negative. Nigeria has a lot going for it. We should have. The world has predicted our demise. How many times?
Yeah.
Somehow we, so it's the historical bonds that make it difficult to just say goodbye. So those are my thoughts on that.
Mr. Moduwe, you share his thoughts as well.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And let me just say nothing to add.
Okay.
It is.
Nothing to add. So let me
Nothing to
bring to
add.
you the emo judgment. I've heard the word coined, mathemagics. That
Not mathematics.
no, it's Supreme
Magic.
Court did some mathemagics and arrived at that judgment. We've heard all kinds of comments about it. I mean, of course, us laymen probably haven't been able to actually
Educated.
understand it fully, but you lawyers may have a better grip of it all and may be able to explain it all to us better.
I'm not too sure that apart from the lawyer that was representing Hope Uzodimma, I'm not too sure that many other lawyers understand it.
Wow.
Sincerely, I'm not too sure. I have discussed with a number of my colleagues. Some call it a miracle. Some call it all sorts of names. Some do not understand why it's a policeman.
That would tend
A
to.
policeman tenders something and it is accepted by the Supreme Court but rejected by lower courts. Nobody can understand it. But it has happened in the Supreme Court. Supreme
And
is
it
the
is
word.
supreme.
Supreme is
That's
the word.
right. Next appeal
It
to
is
God.
It is so. What are you
Chapter
going to
closed.
do? It's amazing. And in fact, some lawyers say, "Look, I'm so ashamed to even say I'm a lawyer. We don't know what is happening, but something is going to happen. People begin to be disillusioned. People begin to lose faith, and when that is the effect of it, that's why at times, even in law, at that level, you can even make a decision based on public policy. In other words, how will people react to this?
Yes.
How would
Yes.
people react to this? Then you do it. Because at all times, whatever you do must create stability.
Yes.
But what has the Supreme Court done? I'm not the one. I don't have the powers to judge them. So they are supreme.
Yes.
They've done it, but I remain confused.
Mr. Athawari, are you
Well,
confused as well?
I haven't read the full judgment.
It's not even out.
It's not out, and that might perhaps explain some of the decisions, which some people have questioned, but others have justified. I think that to judge the Supreme Court at this level, I think you need to at least tell us why you, for instance, accepted purported results from a police officer, results that INEC itself, the umpire, had rejected. Perhaps there is some new reasoning that we don't yet understand, or that that something happened that informed that, which we don't. So I'm not quick to rush to judgment. To me, they are still the supremes. They are the last. They've acquitted themselves many times through Nigeria's history, shown some bravery and courage. And like my learned friend said, had stabilized the polity. I found their judgment of the Awo Shagari substantial compliance case, the 12 2/3. If you read the judgment, it was extraordinarily self-explanatory. It was wonderful. Substantial compliance made sense. It didn't make sense to the little, but that made sense. So I hope that when we read the full judgment, it would
make sense.
Make sense, and abate some of the anxieties that are existing now.
Okay, let's hear from our viewers. Olabisi Sam Iola says, Amotekun is a good idea, but my fear is that they might end up becoming a copy of OPC. Their role is not properly documented according to the law of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, and it might cause conflict between them and the police. But the police was represented at that law.
No, that doesn't matter. Representation does not legitimize something that has some, that's symbolism.
Okay.
The key is this. Look, if you want to set up an agency that might have an impact on a person's liberty or freedom of movement or whatever, then you have to have accountability mechanisms. Now, as Amotekun is set up, it hasn't got a legal, it hasn't got a law, because as I said, it's regional, so one state cannot pass a law for each. If by chance, because human nature is about random happenings, about unintended consequences, assuming they carried out an act which led to the violation of rights, who would you sue?
So if the 6 states that are involved,
yes,
if the 6 state assemblies pass a law,
each
state had its own.
They can't pass a law backing a region. They can create their own and then coordinate. Nobody can stop them from coordinating, sharing intelligence, doing patrols together, etc.
Okay.
But to once you start talking regional, you are talking common services under constitutional law, and that's federal.
Illegal.
Okay.
That's federal.
Okay.
So I'm not emotional about this thing. The need for security is there, but we have to do it in a way that defeats those arguments about validity and all of that.
Okay. Temitokpe Ogungbemi says, Nigeria will escape from the current mess when the emerging ethnic and religious nationalism is forcefully, his words, suppressed and functional education resuscitated. Nigerians usually see others as the other. Mr. Woodway.
I don't agree.
I don't agree.
I don't agree at all. I just told you, we don't have any problem. Nigerians don't have problems with themselves.
It's the politics.
I can tell you that. It's politics. There's nothing else. A Nigerian can go anywhere in Nigeria and live there, and you live comfortably. You don't have any problems with the people. They see you as their neighbor. They interact with you. But the minute it comes to politics and who will have power, end of story.
Wahala comes.
And I think that is also compounded by the less than satisfactory level of service delivery. All the little irritations daily, and and it just makes you, so you are easily attuned to think a particular way. So I think if we up the quality of governance,
Yeah.
we'll deal with some of these issues.
Okay.
Hold on.
Okay. More comments.
Okay. This is a quick one. Olumide says he's enjoying the conversation. He says, the truth is not far from us. We are just running far from the truth.
the truth.
But Tunde
That's very
Arogumati,
philosophical.
Arogumati says, Amotekun marks a turning point in the realization of the bona fide Nigerian federalism at community, state, and regional level, whereby the delivery of governance is direct and without the bureaucratic logjams reminiscent of dysfunctional unitary national policy.
Well, that's sounds like it's a good political science analysis.
Lot of grammar.
But as long as you are part of a structure called Nigeria, you have to comply with certain things. Otherwise, nobody is accountable.
So structures have to be-
So structures are important, I think.
Okay. Al Tombri says, for progress, each federating unit should have its own police, generate its own electricity, manage its own resources, contribute a percentage to the center to manage the central institutions like the military, immigration, customs, FCT, etc.
That's the way it
Institute
works.
open merit at
Bank.
federal level.
You
That's
see,
the way it
that's
works.
wonderful. That's the prescription for true federalism.
That's right.
But as my learned friend said, certain interests have been so deeply vested
Yes.
by this long period of centralism that there's going to be resistance. So it's a negotiated way out. That's what I believe. There'll be look, it's a compulsion. People will, before, most northern states would not want to hear of delinking from federal, okay? Because they perceive themselves to be in a better position. Now they are finding that that system is no longer as
Lucrative.
not lucrative.
In
It's not
quotes.
so much. I'm talking more about policing now.
Okay.
Now, the states, many states in the north are saying, hey, I think we should start to consider state police, particularly at the community level and so on. And everybody knows.
Zamfara is not having fun.
So, nor is Katsina. So,
That's right.
perhaps with time.
No
Okay.
Taraba.
We have a lot of comments coming in. We'll look at them
Yeah.
when we'll come back
Yeah.
from this break. But let me take this one before
Yes.
we go on that break. Temi Tokwe again says, history was killed in our schools
Yes.
because, as you said, our leaders were never good models.
Absolutely.
Oh dear.
That wasn't the real reason.
It wasn't
though.
the real
The real reason is to hide
Yeah,
so many
certain things
atrocities.
that went on.
Too many atrocities. That was why it was good to kill history. Because when we get to know. Do you know if we go into history, we go back to 1804 and start coming back?
Even before that.
Or before that?
Before that, people must know
And
about
a number of
Songhai
people will be
and
uncomfortable.
Ghana and Kanem Bonu and all of that.
A number of people will
Must
be
know that.
uncomfortable.
People don't know where they're from anymore, what their history is. It's terrible.
Okay. All right. We'll be back in a moment to continue the conversation. Please stay with us.